Hello folks, and welcome back to Mod of the Month, where we showcase some of the best builds completed over the last month over in the BitTech forums. Corsair has upped the ante and are providing a host of Hydro X themed goodies, with first place netting a choice of an XC9 or XC7 RGB CPU block, a choice of GPU block from their range, an XD5 RGB pump reservoir combo, and a Commander Pro. Second place gets a choice of CPU block and GPU block, and third gets a choice of CPU block. As ever, if you want to be in with a chance of taking part and netting some pretty awesome Corsair goodies, all you need to do is have a completed project log posted over on the BitTech forums. Enjoy the builds.
Now I think we need to begin by mentioning just how close the voting results were for last month. Even when adding the totals from both the forums and Discord, there were only 2 votes between first place and 4th. So a big congratulations has to go out to ROG Pagoda by Jones965 however, who managed to nab the top spot after this epic struggle. Now let's see who the nominees are for this month. Now starting off with a familiar name to Mod of the Month, AKMod turned his sights to Az's new case, the Cast. Now as the project name would suggest, carbon fibre was indeed the theme of the day. However, thankfully AK didn't turn to ye olde carbon Dynoc vinyl. Since the parts feature quite a few curves and corners, rather than wrapping, AK opted for hydro dipping instead. Now by using hydro graphics, the pattern can evenly wrap around tricky surfaces such as chamfers without resulting in ugly seams. The only real drawback here is that it's still not real carbon fibre, so some of that lovely anisotropic goodness is unfortunately lost. Being an AK project, of course there's plenty of machining work present too. Rather than just use a stock FLT reservoir for instance, he made his own version, with the cable routing built into the frame, which was then hydro dipped to match the rest of the case. Additionally, he also made a POM and aluminium pump top assembly, themed to match again the look of the FLT, which really does fit in rather wonderfully. Some real carbon fibre is present thankfully in the form of the tubing, which is paired with EK's matte black torque fittings for an industrial look. Splashes of orange complete the theme and provide some much needed contrast. Red Dead Journey is Pixelit's first Scratch build, although you wouldn't know it from the results. Theming a mod around a game isn't easy, but often the most effective way is to construct it as if it were a set piece within the title. Now to that effect, Pixelit opted to go with a coach trunk design. The chassis itself is constructed from pine by hand, with careful consideration taken to allow for concealed airflow as well as cable management. Now to achieve the reddish finish, Pixelit used a combination of coffee staining and teak oil. This really lends an Old West appearance to the chest, which would be very much in keeping with Red Dead Redemption. To add more detail to the mod, rope handles were added along with fine rope sleeving for all the visible cables. The top and inside were then finished via wood burning. This is a really interesting technique to use and not one that's common within the modding world it seems, although it's a perfect match in this case. The designs were first sketched out onto the wood and then burned into the surface using a soldering iron. It's a simple method with a lot of scope for some fantastic artwork. Some big chunky hinges wrap up the exterior and allow for the lid to lift open and show off the innards, which were then fitted with sticks of dynamite to boot. Now every so often you get presented with a Scratch build that is so well finished that you end up forgetting that it's not a retail product. And this is very much the case with Tubeless build by Nenofatch. Side note, my apologies if I got that wrong, I have absolutely no clue how to pronounce that. Now the concept of a build without any tubing has been around as long as people first started machining water blocks and distro plates. A few have even been done before. However, I think this one takes it to a whole new level of what? You see, the mental thing here is that the CPU block appears to be, well, not connected to anything at all. And that's because they turned a set of custom hollow standoffs that allow the coolant to pass through the socket mount itself from one side of the board to the other. Now I'm not sure what's more impressive, actually making the thing or simply having the thought to try doing that in the first place even. To accomplish this, naturally it meant making a whole new acrylic top for the CPU block from scratch. And not content with just the CPU block magic, of course it also meant making a new terminal for the GPU block and a rear distro system behind the motherboard. The radiators then fit into the block directly via bits powered D-plugs, which are essentially large push fittings. Now if you're wondering where the airflow comes from, the distro has large cutouts for the fans which pull air from directly underneath the motherboard. Last but not least, we have the external aluminium structure, which has been machined with matching precision and then anodized. The whole assembly pivots on a central axis, which is a cool finishing touch to what is a mind-boggling construction as a whole. There you go folks, it's been made, no need to keep asking me to machine a tubeless PC now. Starting off with Antec's P120 crystal chassis, Chris wanted to use Rebellion as a platform for trying out a parallel loop configuration for the first time. Now if you're not accustomed to how a parallel loop works, you're essentially dividing the flow of coolant between two blocks at the same time. Now this is quite a common setup for multiple GPUs, but recently it's exploded in popularity for CPU plus GPU loops as well. The only real requirement though is that both the CPU block and the GPU need to be of similar restriction levels, else one will end up getting significantly lower flow than the other one. Rebellion structure is largely thanks to a number of 3D printed details. Chris set to work printing out mounts for the reservoirs which allow them to sit comfortably in parallel in front of the radiator fans. Now rather than simply printing out some clips though, the mount covers the bottoms of the tubes, which is a neat and subtle solution. Similarly, the vertical GPU mount has been braced underneath and covered using a 3D printed bracket that attaches to the leftmost fan frame. Again, this works to keep the mount subtle and sleek. One might not notice it simply because it's been integrated properly. The build is then finished off with some vibrant red coolant, white lighting and red accent pieces. Now Marcos mods always take a turn for the fun and bombastic, and Egyptian mod is no different in that regard. In one of the top 10 anime betrayals of 2020, he set off by opting to use a Strix Z490i gaming motherboard in Cooler Master's huge C700M chassis. Yes, that's an ITX board in a C700M. Now just hear me out here, right? The chassis was thoroughly first deconstructed, with new panels being made from laser cut acrylic and CNC machined aluminium. The lower panel mounts the power supply at 45 degrees or so to the base of the PC, which is certainly a unique solution. The aluminium panels then had hieroglyphics milled into them alongside the radiator mounts. The panels themselves were then sanded and painted matte black, with the hieroglyphics filled in with gold paint. The base panel was then processed with a very unexpected combination: dirt. In order to bring the theme further into Egypt, he finished up the floor with light gravel to represent the desert, which sets the stage for a pair of Anubis effigies, both of which hold up the two tube reservoirs on their backs. The outside of the chassis was then finished up with a wooden trim, once again painted black and gold to match the interior. The motherboard tray and other details were cut from acrylic, which was first textured with ancient Egyptian motifs. The golden symmetrical bits power water cooling loops and the new acrylic rear panel are the cherries on top of this absolutely bonkers and mad build. Remember folks, if you'd like to be with the chance of taking part and potentially winning some Corsair HydroX gear, you just need to have a completed project log over on the BitTech forums. Be warned though, we do like to see how the projects grow, so get in early and show us the progress start to finish please. It goes without saying that if you're new to the channel, also don't forget to subscribe, as modding really is our jam. We're going to have plenty more part reviews, tutorials, as well as project logs, the likes of which you will not find anywhere else, I guarantee. So you really don't want to miss out. You can also find us over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and builds.gg. Our Discord server is also linked below and is the best place to stay up to date with ongoing projects and other tidbits. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, make sure you have a look through our merchandise store, again linked in the description. We've got plenty of sweet shirts, hoodies and mugs up already, and we'll be adding more in the future, so be sure to check back regularly. Take care folks, and I'll catch you next time.